Hey everyone, welcome to Grace Christian Church Online. We're so glad you are here with us a few minutes before service. So as you're getting ready for church, we're just going to talk a little bit. Yeah.
We're going to welcome you in here. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We're sitting here like, what are we going to talk about? The snow. I cannot remember the last time we got this much snow.
Yeah, see, I grew up up north. So I'm from New York, lived in Michigan. So I'm well aware of life with lots of snow, but I've been in Kentucky for 10 years. And I don't recall this much ice and snow at one time down here since I've been down here.
Yeah, I'm usually I love snow, keep snowing. And I don't know if it's because I'm a homeowner and I'm an adult. I don't like being cold, get your clothes wet if you go skiing. And the fact that my garage door freezes to the ground, I'm so over the snow.
Yeah, my least favorite thing is shoveling my driveway. I can handle driving. We've been able to take our kids out sledding this past week. And so it's a lot of fun when you've got kids and when you're little, but shoveling the driveway, especially when there's a layer of ice, then a layer of sleet, and then a layer of snow, and then another layer of ice, and then it's my back was sore for days after shoveling the driveway.
It's true. I walked out front and my feet didn't even sink.
Yeah. So what about winter sports, like skiing, sledding, snowshoeing?
No,
anything like that for you?
One time, I've been to Perfect North twice, and there was one time I literally rolled down the entire slope. So because of that, no, count me out.
We took my son Matthew. He's 6 years old. We took him up to that giant hill in front of Mallard Point here, up in northern Georgetown, and he did that. It was so fast because it was icy, and so he could never go down the whole hill. He was too scared. So we go a quarter of the way. And then we climbed to the whole top, and he would just roll. He just wanted to roll down the whole hill. He loved that.
Maybe if I was 6, that'd
Mackenzie
be fun,
style. Yeah.
Now I'm over it. Hey, if you haven't heard yet, just in a couple weeks, we're going to be opening the building back up for in-person services. So if you haven't got it on your calendar, March 21st. Not sure what time yet, but stay tuned for that. March 21st, we'll be gathering together, worship in person, and I know a lot of you are excited. We're excited, working towards that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I mentioned this before, but I'm really excited because I've never personally actually been to a service in the church building here at Grace Christian. So I can't wait to see so many of your faces, and we are doing everything we can right now. We believe we can open up safely, and so we're working through everything that looks like, and we're trying to figure out how we do this the best way possible. And so, but we're going to do it March 21st. But no fear, if you're not ready for that, if for health reasons or other reasons, being in person in a larger group like that is still not the best option for you. We totally understand that. So don't worry, we're going to continue to have online worship. Grace at Home will be available, and so we'll continue to do that. We'll do the best of both worlds going forward.
Yeah, and a lot of you, like Dan, haven't been into the building, and you're all in for Grace already. You keep watching online, you sign up to be a microsite, you're using our resources like the main course, and some of you are even ready to begin serving here at Grace, and it's going to be different. Some of you don't even know what that looks like to serve here at Grace, and we want you serving. We want you using your gifts and talents, becoming the person that God has created you to be. And today at 1 o'clock, we have our class, Discover Serving. It's at 1 o'clock. It's on Zoom. Pastor Andrew's going to lead that class, and it's really going to be like an all hands on deck. We want people to come into the building, and we want people to feel welcomed when they come into the building. We'll have worship team, first impressions, people smiling, greeting you at the door. There's going to be a lot of even behind the scenes stuff that has to happen for church to happen. So if you're interested in that class, you can text My Next Step to 31996.
Yeah, and I just really encourage you, especially if you have been the personality over this last year that has just been thinking to yourself, I can't wait to get back in person. I can't wait. If you've been chomping at the bit, I would really use this as an opportunity just to invite you to be a part of that leading edge for us in serving and helping us make this possible, because it can't happen without people serving and volunteering and giving of ourselves to, like Mackenzie said, welcome other people into the building. So again, if this is something that you are just amped up, ready to go, ready to be back in person worshiping together, again, just a really good opportunity. Whether you've served with us before or you never have, it's a great opportunity to step in and say, hey, how can I help, especially during this season as we're trying to open up for the first time. So like Mackenzie said, make sure you jump in with us on that Discover Serving class later today.
And if you haven't done it yet today, make sure you share this Facebook video, get it onto your timeline, invite your friends to watch and worship with you. If you're on YouTube, share the link, send it out, text a couple people. We're really excited to be worshiping together, and I'm really excited to hear the message today.
Yep, so let's go ahead and worship together.
heart's rejoicing, breaking silence. You are my God alone. Time to stand on your word with passion. Heaven's our home. Oh, and I can't stop giving you praise. Your fame will last forever, and I won't stop living for your name, declaring your praise. You're my victory, reason why I sing everything I need. There's no other name that deserves all praise. You're my victory, Jesus. My life transformed in your holy presence, given to you, call alone. My shame is buried, I live in freedom, my God is one. Oh, and I can't stop giving you praise. Your fame will last forever, and I won't stop living for your name, declaring your praise. You're my victory, reason why I see everything I need. There's no other name that deserves all praise. You're my victory. You're my victory, reason why I sing everything I need. There's no other name that deserves all praise. You're my victory, Jesus. There's nothing that I want more. See you high and lifted up. There's nothing more powerful. Your name, your name. There's nothing that I want more. To see you high and lifted up. There's nothing more powerful. Your name, your name. You're my victory, reason why I see everything I need. There's no other name that deserves all
Hey everyone, welcome to Grace Christian Church Online. If you're joining us for the very first time, my name's Mackenzie and we are so glad you are here. It's still crazy to me that we've been here online as our main way to gather together for almost a year now. It was just a few years before this, around the same time of the year, that we sat together as a team and decided that we wanted to put our services live on Facebook. And now I'm constantly shocked at how many people join us on Sundays, how many people all over the state, country, and even the world watch our services. In a time such as this, living in a pandemic, church online has been the best and safest option for so many of us. For almost a year ago, we started preaching our top value is to love and love well. We focused on church online, we built a stage, and we worshiped outside on some really hot Sundays and some really cold ones too. We even launched really cool resources like the main course and Grace at Home boxes for microsites. But here in the next few weeks, on March 21st, with masks and social distancing and other safety precautions, we are confident we can continue to love well and have in-person services again, especially for those of you who have been itching to get back into the building. We're also confident that we can still give great online services for those of you who feel comfortable and want to continue to worship from home too. Here at Grace, there are 3 environments we're constantly talking about. Those are Sunday mornings, small groups, and serving. Today, there's an opportunity for you to learn how you can begin to contribute your time, your gifts, and your talents to the local church. And that's at our Discover Grace class, which is at 1 o'clock today via Zoom. Our lead pastor, Andrew, will be there to welcome you and help you learn how you can serve here at Grace. Text the words My Next Step to 31996 to mark that you are interested in this class so that we can send you the Zoom link. Church online, church in person, resources we've sent to you and your family, and environments such as Sunday mornings, small groups, and serving are all possible because of your all's faithfulness to give. Your faithfulness to give here at Grace is used and appreciated in so many different ways. There are 2 ways you can give today. One on our website, gracechristian.tv/give, or you can text any dollar amount to 84321. Thank you for giving. Thank you for being here at Grace and worshiping with us from wherever you are. And right now, let's dive into the Word with Pastor Andrew.
So in your home growing up, I want you to think about what was more important, facts or feelings? Like if you had to choose one in your home growing up, facts or feelings. Now, in my home growing up, we were a facts family. My parents had a really high value for personal responsibility, no excuses. Kind of the motto was just like, get the stuff done. Whatever your task is, don't feel sorry for yourself. Just do the work you're supposed to do. Every Saturday morning of my childhood began the exact same way. About 6 a.m., I would be woken up with the lights being turned on in my room and all the covers just ripped off of me. And no, this was not some sort of military drill. This is how my dad woke me up on Saturdays to do my chores. My dad has always raised beagles. He hunts them competitively. It's not uncommon for him to have like 100 dogs at a time. And 100 dogs produce a lot of dog poop. And my job growing up was cleaning out all the kennels. Like every Saturday morning, 6 a.m., that's how my Saturday began. I can never remember a time when I was down there cleaning the kennels that my dad would say, "Hey, Andrew, how are you feeling? Like any emotions you want to process with me? Is there anything that you're dealing with that you want to talk to me about?" Like that was not the conversations I had growing up with my dad on Saturday mornings. It was just facts. This is the job. We've got to get it done. Like even like going to school, if I ever made a C, I was grounded for the next 9 weeks. It didn't matter if I had an excuse or if the teacher wasn't a great teacher. Like C's meant grounded for the next 9 weeks. That's just the facts. My curfew was at midnight, not 12:01. If I was 1 minute late, I'd be grounded the next week. And so like I could come home, I was a minute late, I could say, well, but there was traffic or there was a wreck, Mom. And I went into this like car that was on fire and I pulled out this lady and her child. I saved 2 human being lives. And she'd say, well, you should have done it faster. It's 12:01, you're grounded the next weekend. Facts were the only thing that mattered in my home growing up. And then also grew up in a high faith environment. And sometimes in the church world, we haven't done a great job with emotions and feelings. In the faith environment, you trust God, that God's good and that if we pray, He's going to respond and that He's in control and He's going to work everything out. So there isn't a lot of room for depression and discouragement and feeling weary. Like those are all symptoms that we don't have enough faith. And so you're kind of taught like there's no room for that stuff. Like don't even focus on anything negative because God's good and He's going to take care of it. And if you're feeling that, you're feeling the wrong emotions. And there wasn't a lot of room for feelings in my childhood. And so because of that and because of my temperament and my wiring, like facts are really important to me. I like just getting the job done. Whatever we got to do, let's do it. We'll feel sorry for ourselves later. Let's not make excuses. Like that's just kind of the way I'm wired. So then a little over 18 years ago, Brittany and I get married. And Brittany was raised with 2 sisters. Another little point you need to understand about her, she didn't clean any dog pens growing up. And all of a sudden she started talking to me about these things called feelings and how it made her feel or an experience that we went through, how that made her feel a certain way. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That has nothing to do with the facts. So our very first Valentine's Day together, we've been married like right at 7 months. We bought a house, we bought new furniture. And so we agreed that we weren't going to buy each other anything for Valentine's Day. And here's the mistake I made. I thought when she said, don't buy me anything for Valentine's Day, that she meant, don't buy me anything for Valentine's Day. That was the facts. Instead, our very first Valentine's Day together married ended with her crying and letting me know that she felt like I didn't love her, that she wasn't valued, that she wasn't important to me because I didn't get her anything. Like I didn't get her a card, I didn't write her a note, nothing. And like in that moment, I started learning a lesson that I'm still learning 18 years later, that feelings matter as well is facts. And I've learned this in life. If I'm going to be great in relationships with my spouse, my kids, my friends, my coworkers, there's these 2 components that we have to talk through. What are the facts? But also what are the feelings? We open this series reading about what Jesus did. It says this in John chapter 1, verse 14. It says, the Word became flesh and He made His dwelling among us. John says the Word, the truth, facts, God Himself showed up. But it wasn't just facts and the truth. He put on skin and He walked through everything that we walk through. And Jesus experienced every emotion that we've experienced. Like He felt in a meaningful way. He understood that feelings and emotions matter so that He could be that merciful and faithful high priest that we read about in Hebrews. He went through everything that we went through so that He could understand our feelings and our frustrations, our temptations, but He's also the truth. In fact, let's read the rest of that scripture. In verse 14, it says, the Word became flesh and made His dwelling among us. We've seen His glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father. And listen to this, full of grace and truth. Those things seem like they stand in contrast with each other, grace and truth. Grace is more than mercy. Mercy is not getting what we deserve. So that would be like my kids doing something wrong and me saying, I'm not going to punish you. That's mercy. Grace is getting what we don't deserve. So in the same situation, my kids do something wrong. Instead of me punishing them, I say, hey, let's go get ice cream and celebrate. That's grace. And what John says is that Jesus was full of grace, but he was also full of truth. Truth is that thing that often we avoid. It's a different perspective, a new reality. It's kind of that thing that lets us know that we are wrong. And Jesus was full of both of those, full of empathy and caring and understanding, but also, hey, I'm going to tell you the truth so that you can move forward and be the person that I created you to be. And I know this, if we're going to be great in relationships, that we're going to have to walk in that same way where we're full of empathy and understanding and we value emotions and feeling, but we also communicate truth. Because I know this, feelings matter. Like we all have a different lens that we see the world through, and we process things differently. And if you're really going to understand me, you're going to be a great friend to me, then you need to understand how I feel in those moments. But facts also matter. I mean, we need to hear the truth in our lives. And what I've found is most people don't have someone who loves them enough to tell them the truth. Like, we have people that will empathize with us and listen to us and pat us on the back, but we also need people that will tell us when we're wrong and consistently. I watch people make decisions that are going to destroy their reputation and their family and their influence, and they just walk down this path, and I'm always thinking, where are the people in their lives that will tell them the truth? So here's what I want to do today. I just want to be really practical, and I want us to think about our relationships. Maybe the relationship with our spouse, with our kids, with friends, with coworkers. Because we're in this series called In Their Shoes. And the question is, in those moments of conflict and misunderstanding, those moments that are tense, these kind of make or break moments in relationship, what does it look like for us to get in someone else's shoes so that we can love them well in those moments? You know, Jesus said something in Matthew 7 that applies specifically to this. He said this in Matthew 7, verse 12. He says, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. I mean, this sums up the law and the prophets. Jesus said, this is kind of everything. Whatever you would want done to you, just do that for other people. So the question is, in moments of misunderstanding, in arguments, in moments when you've been hurt or wounded, what would you like for other people to do for you in those moments? How would you feel valued and loved? Just take time and think about that question. And then Jesus said, now just do that for other people. You know what I want in moments of disagreement, in moments where I feel hurt or wounded or there's misunderstanding? I want someone to listen. Not do all the talking, but just listen to me. And so Jesus would say, well, listen, if you want to be a great friend, if you want to be a great spouse, then listen to other people. James said it this way in James chapter 1, verse 19. He says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. James says, let me help you out a little bit. Listen a lot more. Pause before you speak. Don't get frustrated and angry. Just spend more time listening. And I'll just let you know this, I'm not great at this. And what I've discovered in my life, the reason why I'm not a great listener probably is attached to my pride. Because often I think the things that I have to say, the point that I want to make, is just so important that everybody needs to hear it. I'm operating under the bias that I'm right, and if you'll just let me talk, I'll straighten you out. I'll tell you everything that you need to know. And James says, hey, instead, why don't you really listen? Don't talk. Don't get frustrated. Genuinely listen to people around you. And man, if I'm not intentional about this, I am not listening to understand. I'm just listening to reply. I've already got my story lined up. I've already got my point made. I'm just ready to start talking, right? And James says, why don't you try listening a little bit more? Just this past week, I was on a Zoom call with our friends Allison and Nzinga, who's doing a great work in Uganda every Tuesday morning. We jump on a Zoom call with each other and just check in and see how each other are doing. And they're telling me about how difficult their week had been. They were without power for 4 days. I mean, think about that. They had no internet service. They had to cancel meetings. They couldn't be in touch with other people. Like, it impacted their work and everything they do. And they're explaining this to me, and I'm not even listening. There was something that I thought of that I had to tell them, like that was so important. And I was just waiting for a break in the conversation for me to say, hey, I got to tell you about this. And so there was a little pause, and at the tail end of them telling me about how awful their week was, I said, yeah, that's great. Hey, listen, like I said, that's great when they're telling me about how horrible their week had been. You know why? Because I wasn't listening. And I'm telling you, it's fully inside of me that I think I'm so important, my ideas are so great, and everything that I have to say, everyone needs to hear that if I'm not careful, I don't listen. You know, I think there's something very spiritual about curiosity. Like, it implies humility. Like, when I'm curious and I'm listening to understand, and I genuinely want to understand your point of view, it implies that I don't know everything. There's something that you could teach me. And I think that when we're curious and we listen and we ask questions, we're a lot more like the person that God wants us to be. And James says, hey, be really slow to talk. Be much quicker to listen. And then Proverbs chapter 18 says this, to answer before listening, that's a folly. That's a shame. And I think about in my life, so often it's a shame that I don't spend more time listening to the people I love the most. That I'm not more curious about their perspective and their point of view. And here's what I love about the life of Christ. Christ came down and he's full of truth. He already knew the answers, but he was curious. He genuinely wanted to understand our point of view and what we feel and what we go through, so much so that he put on flesh and became like us. And so Jesus said, hey, think about the things that you want in conflict, in disagreements, in misunderstanding. How do you want other people to respond to you? Well, just do that for other people. And I genuinely want people to listen. You know, something else I just want someone to understand my perspective. You know, we all have a lens that we see the world through. We all have our own unique childhood. We have our own wounds and hurts. We all have our own personality and temperament. And we all experience the same thing, but after we kind of filter it through the lens of our lives, we often have different emotions and different responses and different perspectives based on what we experienced. And here's what I want from you. I just want you to take that into account. Like, as my friend, as my spouse, like as my coworker, I just want you to understand that I have my own unique perspective. And if you would just like get in my shoes for a moment, you would understand why I responded the way I responded. You would understand a little bit better why that impacted me or why that frustrated me. If you would just like put yourself in my shoes. And so what Jesus says is, hey, just do that for other people. But you know what? That takes time. I have to genuinely care about you. I have to take time to ask questions and to listen and to not speak. But that's what Christ did for us. It says this in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 2. It says, fools, they find no pleasure in understanding, but only delight in airing their own opinions. You know what I found? My perspective is just my perspective. And often it's wrong. And a fool, they love their perspective. They love their opinion. They want to tell everybody. But a wise person, they sit and they listen. And they try to get in someone else's shoes. And they say, help me understand why you're responding the way you are, or why that made you feel the way that you feel. You know, I was raised in a family that was comfortable with conflict. Unlike a lot of my friends, and I discovered this as an adult, I saw my parents disagree. I would see them have arguments, like in a healthy way, in a way that I appreciate because I saw what it looked like to love each other and then have disagreements with each other. I never doubted that my parents loved each other and I knew they would work it out, but there were times they would have like an argument in front of us. And so my family is pretty comfortable in conflict. It's not uncommon for us to get together at a holiday and all of us like share our opinions and our thoughts and we argue with each other. But it's not because we don't like each other or love each other. It's just something we're comfortable in. We're kind of loud. We have opinions, and conflict is something that we see as the thing that kind of forms intimacy. Honestly, like if I can disagree with you and we can still love each other, like that makes me trust you even more. And I think there's real value in workplaces when people like can really air their opinions, talk about what they think, like and have like conversations that sometimes are a little bit heated, but on the other end of that, like they agree. I mean, I think it shows a lot of trust in a workplace. And so I value that even here as we work together at the church. And there are moments with our staff that I kind of push people like, hey, what do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? Because I really want to hear everyone's opinions. You know, Brent, who is our executive pastor, often we disagree with each other and we'll push on each other and we'll challenge each other. I'm never mad at Brent. It's just like the process that I think it takes sometimes to land at the best solution. But a few years ago, one of our staff members came to me and said, you know, I hate that. I hate when you and Brent like argue in front of us and you all kind of go back and forth. And I'm like, well, why? I'm not mad. We're just talking about a subject and we're pushing on each other. Like we landed at the right conclusion. That's just our process to do that. And she said, you know, I just don't like it. I think because the home that I was raised in, like anytime there was an argument, anytime there was a disagreement, it always ended with a broken relationship. Marriages came to an end. We never spoke to that person again. Completely different perspective than my perspective. And my job in that moment in being a friend and being the person's boss is now to understand their perspective. No, they're uncomfortable with that. So we need to have conversations and understand why she responds the way she responds in conflict because of her perspective. We all have different perspectives. You know, Brittany and I have been married 18 years and constantly I'm reminded we are very different people. We have different childhoods, different temperaments, different personalities, different life experiences. And often we're in the same room, we experience the same thing, but the way we respond, the way we react is much different because we have different perspectives. It wasn't that long ago that we were getting ready to go to a wedding. And Brittany's trying on different dresses and she's coming out, hey, what do you think about this? And she came out and I like this dress. And I said, oh, that's cute. And immediately she goes, oh. And she starts taking it off. And I'm like, what just happened? I said, it's cute. And she said, Andrew, I don't want to be cute. Babies are cute. Dogs are cute. Like I want you to say I look beautiful or I look hot. And I'm like, what? Like in moments like that, I'm like, are we the same species? Like that was me saying like, you look attractive to me, like you look cute. She didn't want to be cute. Like something in her perspective and something in my perspective is different. We experienced the same thing, but the way we responded was much different. And Proverbs says this, a fool, they only like their own perspective. Man, they love airing their own opinion, but someone who's wise, someone who's going to be great in conflict, someone who's going to be great in marriage, someone who's a great friend, they take the time to say, I'm genuinely interested in you. So what do I want in conflict? One, I want you to listen. I want you to try to understand my perspective. But I want to know that like I'm important to you, that you value me, that I'm way more important than winning this argument, you know? And sometimes in conflict, we feel like, man, you're not even caring for me. You're not concerned about me. And I want people to be concerned about me and interested in me. Several years ago, I got the opportunity to go play golf with these two brothers, and both of them played like more than 10 years of Major League Baseball. And I'm a sports fan. And it's like, that's a cool opportunity for me to go play in this private golf course and get to play with these guys that had played professional baseball. And so for 5 hours, I rode in a golf cart with a guy that had played Major League Baseball. And I loved just kind of asking questions to him and what was that like and tell me about this experience. But here was the really weird part at the end of that. After 5 hours together, he never asked me one question about me. You know how weird that is? Like he didn't ask me if I was married, if I had kids, what I did for a living, where I lived. 5 hours, not one question, no interest in me whatsoever. It's an odd moment to think like, man, you are so self-consumed that you didn't even bother to ask anything about who I am as a person. There's something in me that like, I want to feel valued. I want you to be interested in me. And Jesus modeled this so well in Philippians chapter 2, verse 4, talking about Jesus, said, not looking to your own interest, but the interest of others. And in your relationship with one another, have the same mindset of Christ. You know what Paul says? And if you're going to be great in relationships, think about what Christ did. He wasn't so consumed with himself. He was more concerned about other people. And there's something in me that I desire, that I want to know, man, if we're in the middle of a conflict, or do you value me? Are you concerned about me? And so Jesus said, well, just do that for other people. So I want you to listen. I want you to be concerned about my perspective. I want you to value me. But there's also something that I need, and I hope that you see the value in this as well. I also need somebody to tell me the truth. Like, I want someone to validate and understand my emotions and my perspective and my feelings. Like, those things matter, but also I need someone that loves me enough to tell me the truth. And so often in life, like, we don't value that. We have people around us that'll just pat us on the back all the way to a bad decision. And I know this, like, I am wrong often. Dan said something so profound last week. He said, why don't you just make the assumption that you're probably wrong? And I thought about that, and I thought, like that's true. If life has taught me anything, is that I am wrong often. I mean, the things that I was so certain about 20 years ago, the things that I would argue and debate about were so important to me. I look back and think most of those things, I was wrong, and my perspective has changed and shifted. So why would I assume at 42 years old that everything that I think and believe and my perspective and my opinions are all correct right now? It'd probably be more wise for me just to think, I'm probably wrong about a lot of things, and I need someone that would add some perspective to my life. This is what Proverbs chapter 18, verse 17 says. It says, in a lawsuit, the first to speak always seems right until someone comes forward and cross-examines. Proverbs, says the first thing that you hear, the first thing you think, your opinion, your perspective, it usually seems right until you listen to someone else's perspective, until someone else comes and communicates truth to you. And here's what I need in life. I need someone to love me enough to tell me the truth. Like in misunderstanding, in arguments, I want you to care, I want you to listen, but at some point, I want you to look at me and say, hey, have you thought about this? What about this perspective? What about what Jesus says about that? Because often in life, I find myself hurt and wounded, and I find myself getting bitter. I feel this desire to defend myself. And I need a friend to come along and say, hey, the only route out of this is forgiveness. Like, you got to let go of this. And that's not often what I want to hear in that moment, but that's the truth that I need to hear. Sometimes I'm stubborn and I'm convinced that I'm right, and I'm going to prove a point, and I'm going to tell them the truth, and I need a friend that'll come along and say, hey, but is it really worth it? Okay, so you win this argument, but what does it do to the relationship? Does it help anything? That's the truth that I need to hear. But often I get so defensive, and I want to be right, and I want to protect my ground, that I'm not open to truth. But I need a friend who will push through those barriers and love me enough to tell me the truth. Just this week, I went to my friend Brent and I said, hey, this is what happened to me. This is what I'm feeling. This is my perspective. This is how I'm planning on responding. But I'm operating under the assumption that I'm missing something. Help me understand what I'm missing. And because Brent loves me enough, he sat down and he gave me his perspective, and he spoke truth to me, and it changed the way I was seeing things. I need friends in my life who will love me enough to listen to me, to care about me, to understand my perspective, but then still tell me the truth. And I love what John says. John says, do you understand this about Jesus? Like, he showed up and he got in our shoes. He put on flesh. He said, what you feel, what you're going through, it matters to me, and I want to feel it. I want to walk in your shoes and understand that. But I'm also the truth. The Word became flesh. Listen, if we're going to be great in relationships, we have to be willing to do both. And my guess is, like, for all of us, like, we're out of balance in some way. Some of us are just bent towards facts. And we end every conversation with just communicating facts, and we don't validate any feelings. And because of that, there's resentment and there's coldness in our relationships. And I'm telling you, like, it's really important that you spend time listening before you talk. Listen to their perspective. Don't assume that you're right. Like, really put yourself in their shoes. And for some of us, like, maybe we're out of balance and we're really great at the feeling component, but we never really get to the place where we communicate truth, and the people around us, they need us to be honest. And so Jesus said, hey, what are the things that you need? Now treat other people the same way and provide that for them. And I want us to be healthy in our relationships. I want your marriage to thrive. I want you to have great relationship with your kids and have great friends and thrive in your workplace. But we have to be willing to work on these things, to be full of grace, to be full of truth. Here's what I want to do. I just want to pray. I want to pray that God will help us. That God will bring people into our lives that will genuinely understand who we are and will also communicate truth to us. But I also want to pray that God would help us to be that type of people to other people in our life. So let's pray. Jesus, thank you for modeling this so well. Full of grace and full of truth. You came down and you experienced everything that we experienced, and you went through everything that we've gone through. But you also loved us enough to communicate truth. God, we want to have friends like that in our lives. And God, for some of us, we feel isolated and lonely, and we'd say, man, I don't have any great friends. I pray, God, that you'd bring people into their lives, people that would love them enough to listen, to care, to walk in their shoes, and to speak truth in their lives. And God, I pray we would be those type of friends and spouses and coworkers, that we would model your life to people around us. And God, I do pray for marriages that are struggling. I pray, God, through just the steps that we're going to be taking, through our willingness to work on this, God, that you would bring about healing. God, I pray for broken relationships in our lives, maybe between parents and children or friends or dysfunction in workplaces. God, I pray that you would help us to be peacemakers everywhere we go, that we would love people enough to listen, to care, but also people who would speak truth. I believe you're going to help us do that. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, I tell you what, that's just a great message and a challenge and an encouragement. I don't know about you, whether you tend to lead with the facts or the feelings. I tend to be a feelings person, but what's interesting is when I'm in conflict, I actually want to go to the facts. When somebody else is struggling, I don't always do a great job of listening to the feelings. And so in my marriage, with my kids, with all the other relationships I have, that's a message, the one that Andrew gave just now, is something that I constantly have to grow in. And we want you to grow in that as well. We want to be a people who handle conflict really well and who are empathetic towards one another. And so we just want you to know, as your church, as your staff, as your pastors, we're praying for you, and we're here to support you and encourage you and help you in whatever way you can.
Yeah, and a way that we can help you is by taking next steps. There's always a next step for all of us to take here at Grace in our walk with Jesus, our spiritual journey, our relationship with God. And if you don't know what your next step is, we want to help you figure that out. Or maybe you do know what that is. We can help you take that next step. You can text the words "My Next Step" to 31996. There's a few options on there, but then there's also an option that just says "Other" or "Talk to a Pastor," so that we can just chat with you and talk to you and figure out what your next step is and get you going in that direction. So if that's you today, text us, let us know, let us get connected with you.
Yeah, we definitely want to support and help in any way that we can. And right now is a great opportunity just to internalize this message a little bit further. We're going to be posting some questions and a prayer focus on the screen as we close out today. So whether you're sitting at home with your family, maybe you're gathered together with your microsite, this is a great opportunity to take these time to talk about these questions, process them with one another, and really hold each other accountable and begin to pray together to become these kind of people who are like Jesus in the empathy that we have towards one another. So go ahead and respond to these questions in your home, in your microsite, and we will see you again next week.